Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Don Thomas back again with another video. And here you have it, folks. Let's get into it, man. Of course, as always, it's greatly appreciated for you guys tuning into these videos. Definitely want to say thank you to the supporters that have gained thus far. My videos this past weekend did indeed gain some traction. Subscribers went up a little bit. Interaction within the comments went up a little bit, and for that I'm very grateful. So I just definitely want to say thank you guys. For those who have been tuning in, it's been greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's dive into today's topic. As I was perusing through YouTube, so of course I spend a lot of time on YouTube as a consumer of content and a producer of content, clearly, right? So there's a lot of channels that I do watch for entertainment, a lot of channels that I watch to study, a lot of channels that I watch for education. And one of the videos I came across today that I thought it would be cool to review, of course, I feel like it falls under the topic of philosophy, even maybe self-improvement, things of that nature, which are, of course, the topics that I speak on this channel. It's a video brought to you by a channel that I follow called Aperture. And the video in particular I'm speaking on is called, what is it called? Absurdism. Life is meaningless, right? Basically, in this video in particular, it was talking about the story of Sisyphus, right? So Sisyphus was, I believe he was one of the kings, who basically, you see the story of the photos of, the gentleman rolling the stone up a hill, right? And rolling the stone up the hill basically was the analogy of, let me see if I could, so rolling the stone up the hill, of course, was the analogy of, basically saying that death was inevitable. What's the point? You can't roll a boulder up a hill knowing that it'll just come back down and pummel you on your way back down, and regardless. So what's the point, right? Why do we even try? Why do we set out to do things that we inevitably know we are going to fail at? And I basically think that that's what this video was talking about in that regard, right? So ultimately, I think absurdism, to my understanding, also teeters along the line of nihilism, right? So I kind of think the two are closely related. I think the only difference is, so of course, absurdism, as it was described, I feel like, as it was described in this video, I think absurdism is a concept of the repetitive cycle that we find ourselves in going into, right, in our day-to-day lives. I feel like one can consider it, what's the saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Kind of sort of the same concept with absurdism. I think absurdism, as the creator was referencing in this video, is basically the idea that it could be considered absurd that we go through the same repetitive cycles, sometimes the same cycles that we don't like. So we wake up, go to work, go to the job that we hate, interact with the people that we don't like, in and outside of work. We do the things that we don't like to do in a repetitive cycle. We come back home, we turn on the TV, we eat dinner, we argue with our spouse, and we just do it again the next day, right? Which could be considered absurd in some situations, right? Like, why do we put ourselves through this extraneous cycle, knowing, maybe even sometimes expecting a different result, knowing that, hey, maybe throwing our arms up and saying, hey, well, this is my life, what can I do? Things of that nature. I think that's what the concept of absurdism speaks to. Whereas nihilism kind of speaks to the idea of just there being overall meaningless to life. Like, there's no meaning to life. Nothing really matters. There's no purpose for the individual. There's no purpose for us as the collective. All of it makes no sense. We're just out here just taking up time and space, right? Nihilism. Now, I usually like to say that I spend a lot of time. I teeter sometimes in my life on two different spectrums, right? So I feel like there's optimism, where there's like, feeling positive about your life, positive about the outcomes, positive about the things that you have in control, that are in your control. And nihilism is exactly what I just described. What's the point of all of this, that, and the other? So I found myself a lot of times teetering in the middle. Sometimes, a lot of the time, trying to stay more optimistic and staying more on that side of, hey, I know my purpose. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. All of this does make sense. It will make sense in the long run. But I cannot deny that I've spent some time with the nihilistic approach, saying like, hey, what's the point of any of this? Why am I even bothering? What's the point? The point I want to kind of drive home in today's video, and what I actually gathered from the video as well too that I was showing earlier, is the idea that I do believe, the stage that I'm at in my life right now as well too, I definitely do believe that life indeed does have some type of meaning. I do not actually subscribe to the ideology of nihilism. I do believe that there is some purpose. I believe that what we have been granted the ability to do. And of course, that's maybe another topic of free will versus fate. I'll probably do a video on that as well too. These are concepts that I, like to kind of dive into and just kind of put some open thought towards, right? I personally do believe that there is purpose in all of our lives. I think we have been gifted with the ability to choose what indeed that purpose is, right? For me personally, for example, I feel like through trial and error, right, through growing in life, through exploring, through, dabbling in different type of things, from my adolescence to my teen years to my adulthood now, I would agree that I feel like I know my purpose. I feel like my purpose is exactly this. It's exactly what I'm doing now, which is, of course, recording these videos, speaking to people on the internet, and being a voice of inspiration, motivation, being a modern novice level philosopher, right? I think that's one of my aspiring goals, is just like trying to make sense of it all. I feel like is my personal goal, and to inspire people along the way as well too. One of the great artists, one of my favorite artists, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, has a song entitled Hustle and Motivate, man. I think that is indeed my purpose. Hustle all your own endeavors while motivating those around you, motivating people in community, motivating people in the world, motivating, I guess, people on the internet, right? Which, of course, gives us the ability to have that wide span of things of that nature. So wide span of communication and things of that nature. But all in all, basically, and of course, I'll definitely leave the link down in my description as well, too, so you guys can definitely watch this full video. But what I basically took from it was exactly that. Sometimes life can feel like there is no meaning. We all might find ourselves in some type of cycle, whereas we might stop and think to ourselves like, yo, well, what the hell is the point of all of this? Why am I at this job? Why am I in this relationship? Why am I, why am I doing anything where I feel like there's no end result if we're all just going to die anyway, right? My mindset, and the mindset I would encourage all of us to embrace, is that, nah, man, you have the ability to give your life meaning. I honestly believe the meaning of life is to give your life meaning. Make it make sense to you. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you, man. Honestly, like, as an individual, I feel like, man, we all have that one right. I think that's one thing that we're all equal across, that we all have the right and the ability to define what the hell we're doing on this planet. It's up to you. I think it's important, man. And I feel like I was watching another video as well, too, some time ago. I forgot what it was speaking in regards to, but it was speaking that one of the ingredients to a lost society is that people have no purpose. People have no meaning. People have no reason as to why they want to wake up in the morning. And that can, of course, lead to depression and mental illness and things of that nature. If everybody was working diligently on some type of goal, some type of purpose towards their life, I feel like you wouldn't have time to do all the other things, right? All the other things that I feel like are distractions and taking us off our path. So that's something I definitely want to kind of drive home as well, too, man. I feel like everybody does have a purpose, and you have the right to define that purpose for yourself, honestly. And of course, a lot of these things sometimes sound cliche. I never want to sound cheesy and cliche, but I'm actually finding in my life as well, too, the most cliche things that we've ever heard, treat people the way you want to be treated, and give your life meaning and things of that nature. Like, the most cliche things you've been told since a little kid, though they might sound cheesy, they're pretty relevant. I feel like they're pretty accurate, right? It's the simplest things sometimes that we overlook. I think, honestly, have the most take-home value and probably mean the most, honestly. So the main thing I'm trying to drive home, basically, the whole point I'm trying to drive home in this video is exactly that, man. I do believe, contrary to the concept of absurdism, right, and the idea that life has no meaning, I think it does have a meaning, and the beauty of it all is that you indeed have the ability to give your life your own meaning. Not what your parents told you need to be doing, not what your teacher told you need to be doing, not what your spouse told you what you need to be doing, not anybody in your collective circle. You as an individual have a right to define what it is you are supposed to be doing with your time on this planet. Do not waste that time. Do not waste your gifts. Do not waste your ability, because you don't know when it will be taken away from you, right? What's the other saying that I always see all the time as well, too, when it's just like, God, if you believe in a higher power, which I do, of course, I believe God gives you gifts, and it's your ability. It's up to you to use those gifts to give on to others, to make sense, to bring positivity and light into the world. I forget the actual saying, how it usually goes, but nonetheless, I feel like we will have to answer for that, man. You're going to have to answer for why you didn't utilize the skill sets that were given to you. Why didn't you find the skill sets? Why didn't you tap it? And it's never to mean like all of us must be doing these extravagant things. We all must be scientists. We all must be, top elite basketball players, or whatever the case is. But it could be the smallest things sometimes, man. Sometimes you have the ability to nurture. Sometimes you have the ability to speak. Sometimes you have the ability to, just be a leader even on a small scale. It doesn't always have, your purpose doesn't always have to be these grand, lofty ideas, man. Your purpose can be, hey, man, you were put on this planet to be a good father, to be a good mother, to be a good teacher, to be a good counselor, things of that nature, man. I don't want people to think like their purpose has to be, oh, man, I need to go find, get me a Nobel Peace Prize and, find a cure for cancer. Nah, it doesn't have to be that, man. Your purpose can be your role that you play within your family. Your purpose could be the role you play in your community, at the workplace, whatever the case is, man. But I would advise everybody to find something to do with your time here. Find something to do with your time here, man, and stop second guessing yourself as well, too. And again, these are things that I'm speaking to myself as well. These are things that I had to come to terms with, where I feel like I'm at that stage now. And of course, I want to be that voice to other people as well, too. To encourage you to stray away from the path of nihilism. You don't have to have a nihilistic approach to life. I feel like, man, you can give yourself the opportunity to define what it is you are supposed to be doing on this time and work diligently. And in the event that you don't even reach your mountaintop, because I always think about this as well too. And I'll stop here because of course I never want to ramble. Sometimes we set out to, accomplish some things, accomplish some task or some goal in our life, and we see it going some way where it's like it has to go a certain way. You may not reach your mountaintop. A lot of people, there's an analogy that I hear sometimes as well too, man. A lot of people set out to climb, well, not a lot of people, but there have been people who have set out to climb Mount Everest. They thought it was a worthy task, but there are also bodies on Mount Everest. You may never see the top. You may never accomplish the goals that you set out to do, but I believe it's about the journey. And I think that's what this whole video was about as well too. You do hear that, man. Life is not about the destination. Life is about the journey. Life, sometimes you got to be appreciative of the growth that comes in between from your starting point to your end point. You might not see the finish line, and you have to be okay with that. I think some people feel like, oh man, what's the point? I'm one in a million of people who will be able to do this thing, or I will never be able to see the finish line. All right, cool. Even me in my mind, speaking personally, like I have a lot of goals. I feel like I am somebody who's very ambitious and have some type of direction of what I'm trying to accomplish. But even when starting, before I even started any of this right now, I told myself, hey man, I may not ever see the finish line. I may not ever get that platinum plaque on YouTube, right? And reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, man. That might not be the goal, but look at the things that I'll be able to do in that journey. Look at the things and the development and the growth that I'll be able to accomplish, hopefully, in that journey, man. So sometimes it's about the journey. It's about the relationships you'll build along the way. It's about the experiences you'll gain along the way. The relationships you'll have, all those things kind of matter with the journey. And then if you see the finish line, you see the finish line, man. Give yourself something to do. It's no different than starting a video game and maybe not ever finishing it, but you enjoyed the time that you did play, right? Or reading a book, or whatever the case is. It's like the story that maybe it's not about the ending, man. Maybe it's about everything that you do in between, right? So nonetheless, as I mentioned, that's just a quick thought I wanted to say, basically kind of speak on, man. I never want to ramble too long on these videos. I know the attention span of a lot of people is not that long, so I do like to keep my videos somewhat minimal. But as I mentioned, of course, very good video that I watched today. Again, it was called Absurdism, Life is Meaningless, from a content creator called, a YouTube channel called Aperture. Of course, as I mentioned, I'll link the full video that I was referring to in the description as well. And I encourage you guys to check out their content. Really good content, really things that make you kind of think and kind of put things in perspective as well too. It's one of my favorite channels that I do watch on YouTube. So again, what are your thoughts on this, man? Of course, I'm trying to start covering a lot of different concepts on this channel. But what's your thought of it, man? Is life meaningless? Have you found yourself embracing the mindset that none of this really matters? Or are you somebody that's headstrong on, nah, man, my life has a meaning because I defined it this way, and this is what I'm going to do come hell or high water, right? It's either this or die trying. I think that's a positive mindset we can all embrace. And hopefully, you'll be able to pass that on to somebody else so that way they too can feel like they are on some type of path toward productivity. Again, I personally believe if everybody's headstrong on a goal, there wouldn't be time to envy and kill and corrupt and all the other bullshit that's happening in the world right now. If everybody was diligently working towards some type of task, diligently working towards some type of self-improvement. That's my philosophy. Definitely want to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section below. Catch you on the next one.